My name is Reese Marin. I'm an instructor. I used to compete a while ago in pro-ams and stuff like that for US Drift. Instructor, judge for pro-ams here for US Drift, for the Gambler, and a spotter and FD for a couple of teams. And pretty much drifting has just been like what I've been doing for like the last, for as long as you've known me, you know what I mean? And because I'm an instructor, there was this guy, Ed Thompson, the team owner of this. He hit me up and he said, listen, I purchased a vehicle, or I found out he had a vehicle, or somehow he got in contact with me about doing drift lessons with this car, with the 350Zs he bought. So he gave me the old backstory. It used to be the old Sicky car and this and that, had a supercharger, yada, 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 all this stuff. And I was like, oh wow, and this is like your first car, and like to learn how to drift. He was like, yeah, I do hydro boat racing, and you know, he thought since he had that racing background in boating, that could just transfer over in drifting. So I was like, yeah, sure, let's work it out. Long story short, we never really got to that point where he could do that because he's a little bit older and he had some health concerns and stuff like that, and it probably was just not in the best interest for him to be the one doing it. And I think after a while he kind of thought that maybe this is a little bit too much of a vehicle. So we never got to the point where we got to instruct, but then he reached out to me and said, hey, listen, like I'm looking for a shoe-in. And I'm like, well, what the fuck's a shoe-in? You know what I mean? And he told me, he's like, oh, I'm looking for a driver for this car. And instinctively, when you hear something like that, you're like, I'll drive that. Jokingly, not thinking it's gonna happen, you know what I mean? And the dude's like, oh, well, let me talk to my people, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, all right. Calls me a little bit later. He's like, if you want, you come down to Maryland, take a look in the car, and we can set up when we can go drive it. We ended up going to West Virginia, drove it, and he was like, yeah, yeah. And I said, I want to change some things. And so I got to the point where now I'm the driver of this car, and I just got to change it to more of what I like. You know, and so it's pretty wild, you know what I mean, to come full circles. Spend all that money when you first met me, competing and pro-am and all that, realizing that it wasn't going to be lucrative for me to be in the drifting world, being a driver, just I wasn't making money. So I started doing instructing and everything else. And then in the midst of all that, full circle, crazy sponsorship that lets me come down to Clutch Kickers, Hyperfest and all that. So it's pretty cool. Yeah. Like, I would not be doing Clutch Kickers or any drifting this year if it wasn't for this dude who wanted to do this. Like, I can't afford to do this. This shit we did this year was like thousands of dollars. Like, and I'm still trying to find ways where we can like save money, because like, just because you can doesn't mean you should, you know what I mean? And like, I've been doing this for such a long time that I do want to lead by example. And I just want to be, I don't want to be some other dude that like, I found a sponsorship and I just bled this dude dry. Because like, that's what happens in drifting, you know what I mean? Because you never know when you're going to have it again. I did one season of this. It didn't cost me anything. I get to go in here with a clear head and enjoy drifting in a completely different way than anyone else really does. And I'm very grateful for it, and I get to savor the moment. But like, I don't want to like really overly take advantage of this, because there could potentially be more dudes like this down the pipeline that are interested in sponsoring dudes like me or like these other guys. And maybe we can see drifting go in a different direction where there's actually some like real support behind it, like we used to see in other disciplines of driving, you know what I mean? So at least that's what I'm hoping for.